We're getting close to Tisha B'Av, which will be just in less than
2 days.
Day,
2 days.
and the whole together, the end of the fast is like 2.5 days from now. So in a way, it obligated me to say just a word or two before Tisha B'Av. Last year, we have the privilege to tape all these lectures, pasuk by pasuk, line by line, explaining the deep meaning of all the meforshim of the book of Eicha, book of Lamentations. And the Midrash tells us following the famous Gemarrah, that the cause of Tisha B'Av is a selfless hatred. And the way to repair it, to have the tikkun, it's to be a pag-aaral midotav, that someone who's going above and beyond his anger in order to repair the world. So the Midrash tells us famous story about Rachel Imenu, about our foremother Rachel. It's Eicha Rabbah. They said that when Yaakov Avinu, when Jacob gave her the simanim, the sign, that she's supposed to demonstrate it for him in order to be married, because he knew already that the father is Laban is unscrupulous. So Rachel stood before the Almighty God and she said, Ribono shel Olam, Master of the universe, I know that you servant Jacob, serve you with full heart and love me tremendously. And he worked for my father for 7 years in order to be my husband. And now it's a time to get married to my husband. But unfortunately, now it's less than 24 hours before the time to be married, and he wanted my sister to switch with me. And then he wanted him to work another 7 years for me. And when I heard that, it's very difficult for me, yet I gave this special sign to my sister in order not to embarrass her. And I know what's going to happen. My husband Yaakov is thinking that it's me, and then in the morning he may realize that it's not me, and I'm doing that for Hashem, that to do it in order to avoid embarrassment from her. I did not express enviness, jealousy, and I don't want to create any bad feeling to anyone. But who am I? I'm only dust and ashes, Rachel said, and I overcome all my personal desire in order to serve you properly. So here she said, I, meaning Rachel, is one of the four mothers, which considering in some level a prophetess, and she said, in the future, I wanted to consider, God, my manners of overcoming my frustration, anger, and suffering in order to help my future generation to follow that footsteps and be celebrated. And that's what the prophet Jeremiah, which the same way he predicted the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash in chapter 31, he also said the word of Rachel me'ana leitnachem, she refused to comfort, because the Almighty said to her, Min'i kolech mi bechi, avoid yourself from crying, because there is a reward for that good deed. Veshavu banim ligvulam, your descendants will return to the land. So the Magen Avraham is one of the greatest commentators, said in Orach Chaim, Memvav, chapter 41, he said that we have the obligation, if you look at our prayer books, we said in the morning, Atma Tovu, Va'ani berov chazdecha, and I'll, with all the kindness, go and serve you. Beveit Elokim na'alech beragesh. We go in a special feeling in a house of the Lord. So in Tisha B'Av, one of the reasons that we mourning was over not only the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, but also the destruction of Jewish communities during the World War I and II. And one of the terrible tragedies that happened is this ability to have a house of worship, a place to pray, etc. So they said in many Sidurim that the person needs to accept upon himself every morning before he is praying, before he is davening, the mitzvah of self, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love thy fellow as thyself. And this parasha that we're about to read in the Devarim, chapter 14, the Torah said, Banim atem la'Hashem Elokeichem, you are sons of your Lord your God, lo tidgodedu, you should not create all kind of frictions, all kind of problems between man and his fellow. And there's a book called Chaye Adam, which is equivalent to the abbreviation of the Code, who said in the first chapter, he said that the person have the obligation, yakabel al atzmo, accept upon himself to love each and every fellow the same as he care for himself. The fulfillment of the ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love thy fellow as thyself, in order for a person to be accepted, meaning that he is praying, will be accepted by God, he needs to make himself as part of the community, part of Klal Yisrael. And in order for that to happen, he said, Yichlol bitfilato, he should include it in his prayer, that is not only in a personal level that he is caring for himself and he praying for his own need, but he should remember that he is part of Ve'ayula Achadim, that he is all part of Klal Yisrael. Because my teachers used to say, when you're praying, when you study Torah, you do not know what happened to another fellow in Australia or in France or other places in the world that can change the whole situation, the whole destiny. So our call now, as the Gemarrah said in Rosh Hashanah, page 17, the Gemarrah said, Omar Rava, Kol ha'ma'avir al midotav, a person that overcome his anger, his evil inclination, ma'avirin lo al kol psharav, God forgives his iniquities. Shene'emar v'noseh avon v'over al pesha, that God forgives iniquity. So a person also always thinks, if Hashem sees all the mistakes that we are constantly making, yet the door is still open, so how much so is for us? And I would like to conclude with the famous Hanhagot, this famous direction that the Sassover Rebbe, the big Leib Reb Moshe Leib of Sassov, used to say. He said that if a person overcome his anger, is better than 1,000 fasting days. Which means if we follow the book of Isaiah, the first chapter we read this Shabbos, and they say that God in a way rejected hypocrisy, rejected the persons to bring an offering while his heart is not in the right place. So if a person hears sometimes an insult, sometimes a bad feeling, that he or she feels that I really don't deserve it, I really don't, but he should know that that's in atonement and a substitute of 1,000 fasting days, that will be a great tikkun for himself and the community. So this is something that we should take to our hearts now at the eve of Tisha B'Av, that in Mitzvah Shem, this will be the last Tisha B'Av, and in order to make that happen, it's something we need to work on. The rabbi says that the first Beit HaMikdash destroyed because of idol worshippers, and it took 70 years to repair it, and they built a second one. But the second one destroyed because of selfless hatred and anger and lack of forgiveness between one and his fellows. And this is a mistake that we're still working on to repair. So we pray that the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, will rebuild speedily and soon. In our days, the third one. And the Rabbi tells us it's in our power to learn how to overcome our evil inclination and our anger and be forgiving to each other. Stop doing a evil gossip and self-destruction action. And this way, all this fire of destruction of Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, will be a fire of building. Have a new one, the third one, speedily soon nowadays. Amen.
Amen.
We are on the Tractate Psachim, page 24, 4 lines from the top of the page. So the Gemarrah said here, Kavdalet 24, 4 lines from the top of the page. They're also speaking about fire, and it's just continuation of our previous discussion. I said it several times that page 21 is give us the whole foundation. So in order to understand now this page 24, you need to, if something is hard, you need to go back to the previous pages to get the right background. But anyway, והי בקודש באש תשרף להכי ודעתה. Rabbi Shmuel ben Nachmani asked a question. When the Torah used the verse Bakodesh, in a sacred place, shall be burned with fire. So here we talk about two subjects. One is the chametz, the leavened bread on Passover, and the second one is the ox. As you remember, we said in the previous session that is going to be executed, and before that is forbidden to derive any benefit from that. So he said, "Hai mi bailech de Rabbi Shimon." We need to teach it according to Rabbi Shimon. The Tanya Rabbi Shimon אומר, "בקודש באש תשרף", לימד על חטאת ששורפין אותה בקודש. So he said that since the Torah says that vehine soraf, and we don't know the conversation between Moshe Rabbeinu and others, where exactly the place, the location of the burning. So they said here that derived, because they use the word bakodesh ba'esh tisaref, that you have to do it in Azara, in the courtyard. That's the place to burn the chatat. Ve'en li ela zo bilvad, only invalid chatat that will burn in the courtyard. Psulei kodshei kodashim ve'imurei kodashim kalim minayin. So how do you know that that's also applied to disqualified offering of the most sacred order and portions consumed on the altar, such as a fat of offerings and of the minor sanctified that become impure? So they said, Talmud lomar v'chol bakodesh ba'esh tisaref. They said, in the sacred place shall be burned with fire. So this indicates that any disqualified offering must be burned in a sacred place. So the Pnei Yehoshua explained here that this additional word v'chol that look like superfluous is it's a big question if it's a real needed or not. But the way that we understand now, it's the Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi teaching that it applied to both. The v'chol is applied to chametz Pesach and shor aniska. So the question is, so what do we derive from that? That they are forbidden to derive benefit. So he asked, how Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi understand it? Amar lei, that sage respond to Rabbi Shimon ben Nachmani, and he said, Rabbi Yonatan Rabach ma'ikra ka'amar lei. He learned it, your teacher Rabbi Yonatan, from the following pasuk, that they are forbidden to derive any joy, any benefit. He said, it's written in the book of Shmot in Exodus 29, Ve'im yivater mibsar hamiluim umin alechem ad haboker, and if a flesh of the consecration offering or of the bread remains until the morning, then you shall burn the leftover with fire. It shall not be eaten because it's sacred. So what do you derive from that? She'ein Talmud lomar lo ya'achel, because there's no need of the verse to say it shall not be eaten. What is the meaning of the verse that states Uma Talmud lomar lo ya'achel, it shall not be eaten? אם אינו עניין לגופי, if we don't need that whatever נותר, whatever left over is forbidden to eat, דהכתיב ושרפת את הנותר באש, because they said then you should burn the leftover with fire, which means that is an indication that one may not eat it. So he said, התנאו עניין לשאר איסורים שבתורה. So Rashi explained that you refer to the other prohibition that comes in the Torah. For example, Chames Pesach, Shoah Niskal, all this nota. ואם אינו עניין לאכילה, if it's not applied to the prohibition against eating leavened bread on Pesach, and Shoah Niskal, תנאו עניין לאיסור הנאה. So you can refer the matter to the prohibition of derived benefit. So it means that the prohibition for a person to derive benefit from any item, it's that is prohibited for him to eat. So he said, Makan bisreifa, if you tell me that the mitzvah is to burn it, Av kol isurin shebasora misreifa, so you learn all the other apply to burn it, amar kra v'sarafta et hanotar. So the Torah said clearly, you shall burn the leftover. So why they said hanotar? Hanotar is look superfluous. So they're going to tell us, notar bisreifa, ve'en kol isurin shebatorah bisreifa. So they said the leftover sacrificial meat must be disposed with burning, but all the other prohibition of the Torah doesn't need to dispose with burning, even that it's prohibited to derive benefit from them. So why the Torah used the word lo yachel? So ki kodesh which looks superfluous. כל שבקודש פסול. Any קודשי קודשים that it's invalid, וכתוב לי תן לא תעשה על אכילתו. So the apostle come to tell us that it's a negative mitzvah, that eating whatever has been rendered disqualified in a sacred place. So it means that we derive from that the eating from offerings that have been disqualified in the Beit HaMikdash is transgress a negative mitzvah, and basically is a deserved malkot, and it teach nothing with regard to a prohibition against deriving benefit. So now we go back to the pasuk of Yoshua ben Levi said earlier, Omar Abaye, Leolam, the real source that both Chames and Pesach and ox, Mikra Kama, that go for the first pasuk, and you have to go ve'epuch. You have to turn around what Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said in the opposite way. The lichtov ba'esh tisarev velo ba'e lo te'achel, that we should say the words that should burn in fire and not the word lo te'achel. Ma Talmud lomar lo te'achel. Why will you need the word it should not be eaten? Im eno inyan legufei, if you don't need it for itself. The nafkale that you learned with Rabbi Lazar, neunyan lechol isurim shebatorah. So bring it to all the other prohibitions in the Torah. For example, again, chametz bepesach and shoah niskal. V'im eno inyan la'achila, if it's not applied to the prohibition against eating chametz bepesach and shoah niskal, neunyan li'isur hana'ah. So you bring it to the prohibition against driving benefit from that. So if you learn from that, makan bisreifa, if over there in regard to sin offering, it's applied to burn it. Av kol isurin shebatorah bisreifa, all the other prohibitions will be in burning it. Amar kra et hanotar. They said v'sarafta et hanotar, you should burn the leftover. Hanotar bisreifa ve'en kol isurin shebatorah bisreifa. So basically, whatever leftover sacrificial must be disposed with burning, but all the other prohibition item in the Torah doesn't need to dispose with burning. So the Gemara asks, Omar le Papa le Abaye ve'eima le Yachud leilav legufe yudeata. Maybe you said that it come to in order to designate a negative mitzvah for this prohibition itself, which means that it's applied to the sin offering that you bring it inside. the mid Rabbi Lazar, that if you go by the Rabbi Lazar that one who violates doesn't need to receive malkot, ein lokim alav shebichlaloot, that we don't receive a person not receive a malkot for violating a negative mitzvah stated in general item. So you don't. So lo yachel. You need it for the love of chatat, but not for chametz and Pesach and Shor Niska. Ela amar Rav Papa me'acha. You have to derive it from Vayikra, from the Leviticus, chapter 7. Ve'habasar asher yiga bekol tameh lo yachel ba'esh yisaref. The Torah said, and the flesh that touches any impure thing shall not be eaten; it shall be burned with fire. So what does that mean? מה תלמוד לומר, שאין לתלמוד לומר לא יאכל, מה תלמוד לומר לא יאכל? What does that mean? It shall not be eaten. אם אינו עניין לגופו, דענפקא ליה מקל וחומר מעשה רקל בקדושתו. So if you go, you derive it from kal v'chomer, which is more lenient than those offering, so you derive it, the idea of eating a sacred meat from a second tie, that it's much lighter in a level of sacredness. So Rav Papa already knew that you cannot derive it from the Ba'esh Tisaref. So he said that it's enough to have that person receive malkot. If you talk about the second tithe, that is a light in this level of sacredness, the Torah require the person to make a confession, a declaration. In that sense, he said, which the Torah said in Deuteronomy 26, that I did not, in part of his confession, he said, Lo bi'arti mimeno betameh. I neither have removed it while impure, which means I did not burn even impure second tithe. So it means that Maser Sheni Tameh, that impure second tithe, is forbidden from eating. Besar Kodesh Chamur Lo Kol Sheken. So how much so if it's a sacred meat, that the Kedusha it's much stringent because it's a real offering, how much so that if it become impure, it's forbidden to eat it. So Lo Yachel, you cannot derive from that. So maybe you said that we do not warn, which means we may not deduce a prohibition through logical derivation alone, which means because a person responded the issue is only derived from a kal vachomer. So he said, Hekeishahu, you derive it from juxtaposition. That it's a warning for someone who eat a sacred meat, that it's impure in juxtaposition to second tithe. The chtiv, because it's written over there in page 12, in chapter 12 in the Deuteronomy, לא תוכל לאכול בשעריך מעשר דגנך ותירושך לצער ובכורות בחצונך וכל נדריך ונדבותיך, etc. So they said here, it's written there, you may not eat within your gates the tithe of your grain, or of your wine, or of your oil, or forbidden of your herd, or of your flock, etc. So you see that this pasuk itself, by using this juxtaposition tied to offering, that we have this indication that there is a prohibition that apply to offering in conjunction to a tithe. Ma Talmud lomar lo yachel. So what do you derive from the verse, it shall not be eaten? So he said, in a consecrated meal, so he said, if it's not matter of the verse for itself, it's a prohibition to derive the second tithe. Apply to the matter of all prohibition items in the Torah. If it's not applied to the prohibition against eating, since that it's clear, apply the prohibition of deriving benefit. So you may say that since this indicates that justice here, the meat that become impure in the Beit HaMikdash is disposed with the burning. So אף כל איסורים שבתורה בשרפה, so all the other items in the Torah must be disposed with burning. או מהקרב הנותר, so therefore the pasuk said, the sentence says the leftover, that it's indicated הנותר בשרפה ואין כל איסורים שבתורה בשרפה, that whatever leftover has to be burned, but all the other prohibition in the Torah is not disposed with burning. So now the Gemarrah challenged what Rav Papa said, and they said, Omar Ravina Ravashi, ve'ema, you may say that this lo yachel applied to what? La'avor alav b'shnei lavin, that if someone ate a sacred meat that it's impure, he violated two negative commandments. One is lo yachel, and the other one, the lav that we derive from the second tithe. So what happened? They said, lav mi, Amar Abaye, achal putita. If, for example, someone ate, it's called putita, it's like a small water creature. So they said, loke arba, which means you need to deserve malkot, 39 malkot, 2 times. Why? Because the Torah said general 2 negative warning, 2 lavim, apply to all different creeping animals, and 2 specific speak about the small water animal. So nemala loke 5. So if one ate an ant, so he deserves malkot with 5 sets of malkot. Why? Because there's 5 prohibitions. The 2 general and 3 that says specifically about the creeping that come from the earth. So you see here that it's all together, because the Torah said a lot of prohibition against eating creeping animals, but they are specific in the 2 general, and then there are 2 about the water, and 3 those creeping animals on the ground, and 1 applied to oft, 1 was a fly. So it turns that if someone eat ant, he deserves 5 times set of malkot. Tzir'a loke 6, we just turned the page 24b. So if one ate a hornet, 6 malkot, because it's both, it's off and the aretz. There is a Ruch Laner in Makot, Tractate Makot, page 16, that challenged that, but anyway, and they said, so how come Lo Yachel come to put the obligation of someone who ate a impure sacred meat from an addition negative? Amar lei, Ravashi said to Ravina, kolehecha deika lemidrash darshinan velo mokminan belav yeteri. So he said, any way that it's possible to expound a new halacha, we expound and we do not establish the verse as containing additional negative mitzvot with regard to the same prohibition. So now we go back to the pasuk that Rav Papa said, so why we need the first part? We said lerabot eitzim. So we add eitzim and ulevona. That we derive from that it's the eitzim, that it's the trees, the wood part, and incense, that they are not eating, but they are susceptible to ritual impurity of foods. So he said, "V'abasar kol ta'or yochal basar the sefer lamali." So why we need, and it's the flesh, everyone is the pure may eat it. That's it's Leviticus 7. So the Gemara responds, "Lerabot emurim." The sacrificial parts that's included, animal offer or the altar, fat and other things, that's part of that. Emurim me'atam nafka. They say that the sacrificial part, you learn it from another source, which is the Tanya. They said in Leviticus 7, והנפש אשר תאכל מבשר זבח השלמים אשר להשם וטומאתו עליו ונכרתה הנפש ההיא מהמאה. They say that soul that eats the flesh of the sacrifice peace offering, which belong to the Lord, that you should cut off. So he said, since you add the word asher la'Hashem, lerabot et ha'emurim, they come to include this sacrificial part, which means that to be offered to God are not eaten by other people. So the Gemarrah said, Hatam, they respond, Tumat Aguf bekaret, Hacha Tumat Basar belav. Over there, in a case of impurity of body, so they say that it's correct. But here, the case of impurity of the flesh, it's a violation of negative mitzvah. Omar Rabbi Abba, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Yisur Mishpat Torah Nukin Alem Ela Derech Achilatam. He said, all the prohibition in the Torah, one may not receive a malkot for violating them, only if he eats the prohibition item as a usual matter of consumption. Lema'utei mai, what is come to exclude? Omar Rav Shimi Barashi, lema'utei shemachal chelev chai shepatur. That if one eats raw fat, that one is exempt, because it's not usual matter of eating it. Yeah, right? All these prohibition in the Torah, you derive malkut only if it's in usual manner. What is the exclude? That one put a fat on an ox that is torn on his wound to help it heal. So shu patur, that is exempt, because the fat are not normally used for medical purposes. And for sure one who eat a raw fat, that is exempt. Again, it's not ordinary way. The same way. Only the prohibition in the Torah, you receive malkot. One is the violating only to derive the benefit from the prohibition item that is in the usual manner. One not absorb the 40 malkot due to the drinking juice squeeze from orla. Only something that come out of olives oil and from grape wine. However, but if it's the drinking the juice seeped from mulberry, figs or pomegranates, so one does not receive malkot, despite the fact that it's prohibited to consume those juices. Ma'ai tama, what's the reason? So he said, it's not because they're eating it in the way that deriving benefit, that these fruits eating not squeeze from the juice. If you understand the fruit itself, that it's not in the usual manner deriving benefit, we understand work well. But here it's only merely a moisture that drips with the fruit, which is not considered to be an essential part of the fruit. So he said, everyone agreed that mixture of diverse kinds planted in vineyard, that one is flagged for deriving benefit from them, even if does not benefit them from the usual manner, because the Torah did not speak explicitly in the Torah in a manner prohibition against eating it. Now it's very interesting. Isi ben Yehuda asked, how about basar v'chalav? Mixing the prohibition against eating meat and its cook. So how do you know that it's prohibited? So נאמר כאן, כי עם קדוש אתה. ונאמר לנו, אנשי קודש תהיו לי. Both said in both Pesukim that is applied, that you will be sacred people. And the other one, mixing kid not milk, they said it should be sacred men unto me. So learn by that juxtaposition that the same way judges there with regard to the treifa, it's prohibited to eat it. So here too, when they eat meat in milk, it's prohibited to eat it. So we understand that that's applied only eating it. But how do you know that you not derive any type of benefit also? You learn it from kal vachomer. How? ומה העורלה שלא נאבדה בעבירה אסורה בהנאה? בשר בחלב שנאבדה בעבירה אינו דין שיאסור בהנאה since עורלה, which is no sins, has been committed, is part is prohibited to drive benefit. So mixing milk and meat, which is a sin is committed, and the two are illicitly cooked together, so it is right that it should be prohibited to derive benefit from it. So the Gemarrah said, Ma le'orla, we just turned the page. Ma le'orla shekena הייתה לה שעת הכושר, תאמר בשר בחלב שהייתה לו שעת הכושר. You can say that in orla, that it never had a time when it's his feet, So instead, mix and milk and meat, which has had time to feed, unlike Olah, that prohibited the beginning of their existence, both milk and meat were permitted in their own way to cook together. So the Gemarrah said is another proof. Chametz bepesach uchiach shalu shal kosher v'asur v'nad. The leaven of bread in Pesach prove that it's that the time that was feed, which is before Pesach, and it's prohibited to derive benefit from it. So he said, we rejected it, and we said, Ma lechametz bepesach sheken anus karet. So you can say that chametz in Pesach, that the person deserves a karet. That soul should be cut off. Tomorrow, basar b'chalav she'no nush karet. Said that the basar b'chalav, mixed milk and meat, is not karet. Ki le'akir mechur, it's a diverse kind, planted in the environment to prove that it's not relevant. How? She'no nush karet v'asur b'nahar. That is a person not to receive karet and still prohibited to derive benefit. So basically, we are now concluded the learning of Isi ben Yehuda, and soon we learn a question in regards to Abaye. So now let's go to practical halachot. First halacha is the Rambam, Sefer Avodah Ilchot Psulei HaMukdashim, chapter 18. Tum'at haguf. An impure person who eats the portions of an offering that are consumed on the altar is a have the karet, and a ritually pure person who eats impure offering violates the prohibition. It's a reserve malkot. Now it's also the idea of Hana'ami Isur, which is in chapter 14 in Hilchot Machalot Asurot. One violates the prohibition against deriving benefit from a food only when one consumes it in an ordinary manner, with the exception of diverse kinds of plants in a vineyard and meat in milk. That's the way we, Rabbi Yonatan and the Halacha go by the later version statement. We also talk about Isu Olah. It is prohibited to eat Olah, which is a fruit that grows at the first 3 years after the tree had been planted. It is likewise prohibited to drink liquids or juices that seep out from these fruits. However, with regard to drinking Olah liquid or juice, one is basically receive malkut only for drinking olive oil and wine. That's the Rambam Ilchot Machalot Asurot chapter 10. And he said also that it's prohibited to derive benefit from prohibited mixtures of diverse kind planted in a vineyard. One who derive benefit from them, even in an unusual manner, is still reserved malkot Shulchan Aruch Yoredea and 155. Basically, what we're planning to discuss tomorrow, it's also not only the idea of basar b'chalav, but also the kilei kerem as well.